20 years ago, I called up one of my mentors and asked him, "Charlie, out of all the tool and cutter grinders in the world, why do you have 2 Cincinnati Monosets and nothing else?" He thought for a moment and replied, "For swinging a radius." Hi, I'm John Hallis from Dauntless Endeavors. I thought it would be fun to give you a look at my Cincinnati Monoset grinder, what I use it for, and also what makes this particular machine unique. Monosets hold a certain fascination for me, kind of like a Rubik's Cube, because they have 8 axes of movement and they are complex machines. On the right side of the machine is the wheel head, because it has the grinding wheel here, and this head spindle is adjustable. It can go left and right, up and down, and in and out. The left side of the machine is called the work head, and the workpiece would be mounted on this spindle. The spindle can rotate. You can loosen these 2 screws and it can be angled up or down. Also, there's a helical feed feature on it so that when you feed in or out, it can rotate helically and to put flutes on an end mill. It also can be moved left and right and in and out. And lastly, it can be spun. Monosets got their name because a skilled worker can take a solid blank like this piece of carbide, and in one chucking, they can grind an entire end mill on it. That includes the flutes, primary, secondary, relief angles on the cutting edges on both the sides and ends. There's a lot of geometry in an end mill. And the advantage of being able to do all of that in one chucking or one setting is perfect concentricity. Anytime you take a part out of a chuck or a collet and put it back in, you're forever chasing concentricity, and you'll probably never be as good as if you could do it all in the spindle at one time. I bought my first Monoset mostly out of curiosity. I thought I'd bring it home and figure out how everything worked. It didn't take long until I figured out that you don't run a machine like this a couple hours a month and ever become its master. The tool makers who run one of these machines and are really good at it probably have thousands of hours on them, and they become the Monoset specialist within their own company. I will never figure out how to sharpen an end mill on one of these machines, nor do I have a need to. But I have figured out a few things, and I'm going to show you that next. The punches in the picture are used for stamping out can ends like you see in the grocery store for all your canned vegetables and fruits. And a few years ago, one of my customers contacted me and asked me if I had some way of grinding the radius on the inside edge of these punch barrels. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. I made this fixture to hold every size punch that my customer uses, all the way from the smaller 2-inch diameter punches all the way up to these big 6-inch diameter punches. The taper on the spindle is the same as a Cat 40 tool holder, so I just used a Cat 40 face mill holder to mount my fixture plate on. If you happen to be a Monoset expert already, you'll probably have noticed some of the other modifications that I've done to this machine. I have a 1.5 inch wide spacer here and also one down here, and I needed to do that to increase the offset of my work head far enough so that I could do these big 6-inch punches. Without that, I was limited to about 4 inches, I think, is the maximum offset I can get on this machine. The nice thing is that I haven't burned any bridges, and I can completely return it to its factory condition. The first step for sharpening these carbide punches is to grind down this surface straight down until we establish a good sharp edge around the outer perimeter. That's easily done on the Monoset simply by swinging the work head around to 90 degrees, and then I play the wheel head back and forth across the end of the punch as I back the wheel into the workpiece. The beauty of using the Monoset to sharpen the end of the punch barrel is that the wheel stays on the carbide punch barrel the whole time. I can take 10/1000ths off of this end of this punch in 5 minutes easy on the Monoset. It would take over half an hour to do that same amount of grinding on a surface grinder, because as you can see in the video, you're grinding an awful lot of air. However, once I have the edge established, I still go back over to the surface grinder and just dust off a half a thou at the most, and I do that because the surface grinder still gives me a superior surface finish, which reduces my polishing time. Part 2 of resharpening these punch barrels is to set it back up on the Monoset, and we're going to reestablish that 60,000ths radius on the inside corner. I'm going to set my stops down here to limit my arc of travel from 1 degree to 89 degrees. I don't want to bump the face of this at 90, and I don't want to bump the inside cylinder of this. I just want to put a radius on it. Okay, we're looking good now. We have about a half a thou run out. I never grind carbide without a dust mask and my dust collector running. Carbide dust and lung tissue just never make for the best of friends. I have my little radius gauges here, and let's take a look, see how close we are. It looks like we're right about there. I think I'm going to come back in and just clean it up a little bit more. I was rushing it here for the video. Cincinnati only built about 5,000 Monoset MT versions, of which this is one. And this one, I believe, was built in 1994, which makes it one of the last machines that they made to come out of their factory before they ceased production. In 2022, I hauled my old Monoset up to R Systems in Minnesota and traded it in on this freshly rebuilt grinder. R Systems specialized in rebuilding Monosets, and they closed their doors at the end of 2022 for retirement. So this is one of the last grinders to come out of their shop. 2 years later, I find myself in an age and position where I can afford to slow down a bit, and I've decided to put this machine back on the marketplace. I have less than 50 hours on this machine since I purchased it, and it is as crisp and crunchy of a grinder as you're going to find out there on the marketplace. If you're interested, you can contact me through my website. I'm John Hallis from Dauntless Endeavors. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day and be safe.